as time has gone on, your trust grows. And it's not that I don't trust my son. It's just I'm the old guy with, the 40 plus years experience. As each day goes on, you can see that the knowledge that he has, especially on the technology side of things, it's amazing.
This is the PMP Industry Insider Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome out to another episode of the PMP Industry Insider Podcast, where we take a look at what is changing in the pest and lawn industries, and we take you to the front lines to those who are driving those changes. I'm Donnie Shelton, owner of Triangle Home Services, which has Triangle Pest as well as Triangle Lawn. Might I add my two favorite companies? And with me is the most recent Florida man, Mr. Dan Gordon.
It's not
Dan,
recent anymore. I've been here for 3 years.
No, but you know what? If you ever look up, if you just Google search Florida man, I'm still waiting for when you're going to show up on that website, Dan. So
that I have Googled it, and it's quite the adventure. So anyway, good morning, Dan Gordon, PCO bookkeepers and M&A specialists. We do CFO work and exit planning services for the pest and lawn industry. And just so that you know, we have 3 fantastic sponsors. The first one is if you want to do marketing within the pest and lawn industry for your business, you can use Coalmarch, a good group of people. That's coalmarch.com. That's Coalmarch by WorkWave. If you need insurance that's specific to our industry or the pest industry, we recommend PestSure. And PestSure has a program that's specific to workers' comp, auto, general liability, etc. And that would be pestsure.com. And finally, a newcomer this year is Voice for Pest. So they are a pest management industry leader, designing and implementing unparalleled voice solutions for PCOs of any size, as well as lawn care companies from coast to coast. For more, go to voiceforpest.com/podcast. And if you are interested, this is something that we started maybe a year ago, and we probably have about 60 or 70 people in, is a peer group. We have developed peer groups that 8 to 10 companies. Our facilitator is a guy named David Billingsley, who is outstanding, has incredible industry experience. We're lucky to have him. And if you're interested in finding out more, please go to our website at pmpindustryinsider.com/peer groups for more information. And today we are continuing. 2 weeks ago we had a episode on the next step, whether it's generational planning or exit planning, or however, what is the next step. And so the idea for this episode, and maybe some others, is to have some family businesses who are going through this process. We at PCO Bookkeepers, we work with a lot of companies that have made the transition, or are making the transition, or are contemplating the transition. And so I think that it's pretty important that, we provide an outlet for folks interested in this. And today we have Howard and Connor Bright, and they are in Florida men as well. And they they own a company in the Tampa area called Anti-Pesto. And welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having us.
Well, we're grateful to have you guys here. Before we get started, I do have a quick story about Mr. Howard. Mr. Howard is nothing short than what I would consider to be a massive success. I first met Howard many, many years ago. Was it called the U Group? What was the name of the group when we first started, Howard? Do you remember?
I don't know. It was Al's.
No,
Al's
you guys
peer group.
were
Yeah.
just the group.
Yeah,
The U
we
Group was
just
something
Al's
different.
peer group, because
Yeah,
Al Hopper is the one who actually started.
Al's
Yeah, well,
Pest Control, Al's
yeah.
peer group.
Yeah, right.
I guess the point I was going to make was this. I don't know if you remember this, Howard, but I remember, I don't know why I think about this. We were in Charlotte, I believe, was the first meeting I went to. By the way, the group had already formed. I just was a visitor at the time. I guess they were trying to check it out, make sure I wasn't like, I don't know, some crazy dude. And I somehow tricked them. But anyway, I was I remember Howard had a goal of doing $1 million that year. That was one of his goals. Now, Howard, I'm not going to embarrass you and have you list out what you guys' revenues are now, but I can assure you that he hit that goal early on and has continued to do quite well for
and has
himself.
several multiples of that
Yes.
number.
So again, nothing short of a success in my mind. So, and his son, I can tell you, is just as sharp. So, Connor and Howard, welcome to the podcast. We're glad to have you guys here and glad to hear what you have to say about what it's like to have a multi-generational business. So, with that, Mr. Howard, let's start with you. Can you just kind of give us an overview of the company, kind of a little bit of your history, the company's history, kind of, obviously in the last group that we did, it was quite a few family members involved. Maybe just talk through, what family members involved and then basically when you decided to bring Connor on.
Okay, so I can't believe that I'm going to share with you that I am in the industry for 43 years this year. I cannot believe that. Anti-Pesto is going to celebrate or is celebrating its 37th year. We started Anti-Pesto in 1988. I started it completely from scratch, just door to door, knocking on, mostly commercial stuff. That was the easiest thing to do. And in 1988, I was a single guy and just kind of, loving life and working 2 or 3 days a week and playing a lot of golf. And then in 1994, something happened. I met a girl. Who is my wife.
What'd that do for your golf game?
Yeah.
Handicap.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, it was in 1994. I decided to get serious. I met my wife, Wendy. She is an accountant. She's got her degree in accounting, and she was exactly what I needed because I was not very good on the financial thing. And so since then, we have together. There's been a couple partners here and there, but she's been the one that stayed by me the whole time, and we've grown it to where we now serve 5 counties in the Tampa Bay area, and we have today we'll have 34 employees after today. Termite pest, that's our primary focus. We mostly now have transcended more to the residential side of things. My son Connor is 25 years old, and he through his teenage years worked summers for us. And gosh, what'd you do, son? Let's see. There was insulation, loading the hopper for insulation,
termite trenches,
all the good stuff, all the
good
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah, all the good
The attic's 100-degree
Yes,
yes, crawl spaces, borate treatments, all the fun stuff. Bedbug heat treatments.
Oh yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah.
So in 2017, he graduated from high school, and 3 weeks after he graduated from high school, he went off to University of Florida. Go Gators! And 3 years later, he came back with 2 degrees, one in economics and another a master's in management. During that 3 years where he was away, he decided that he didn't want to be in the medical field, and he wanted to get into pest control. So, which I confess to you is, in my opinion, a father's greatest dream is to be able to work alongside of his son and for him to want to be a part of the company. So in 2020, he came home during COVID, graduated college, got his 2 degrees, and in September of 2020, he started in sales. And he has worked, I spent a year in outside sales, and then we're having issues in the office, and I made him in charge of the office manager, and so he redid the whole office, and then I don't know, I guess about a year ago we made him director of operations. So did I leave anything out, son?
No, you kind of hit the nail on the head with all of that. So when I was growing up, I spent some time out in service, and would hang out with our service manager and our pest tech in the summers when I was home from college, spend time with our sales manager. And then when I came on full on board, like my dad said, I went into outside sales, did that for a year, then came into the office. And now I oversee our customer care team, our inside sales team, and then marketing. And so that's kind of where I sit now.
So I have a little story. It was Pest World maybe 2, 3 years ago in Boston, and we had a little party for our clients and friends, and Howard, myself, and Vince Petty were standing at a table, and Connor, Vince's son Josh, and my son were standing at another table. And we just looked at each other and said, "This is amazing.
Yeah.
This is fantastic." And
Yes,
so I'll remember that for quite a while. I don't know if you remember that, Howard,
I
but
do. I
yeah.
do, as a matter of fact. I do.
So I listen, this is actually kind of funny. If you know Howard, he's absolutely right. Wendy is absolutely his opposite, which is great.
So true.
Absolute
He
opposite.
wouldn't have
And
he
listen,
wouldn't have the money he has,
well,
but
listen,
his handicap
Amen
would
to
be a
that.
lot lower,
there's nothing.
right?
Listen, that you know what? A smart person knows how to balance it out. And I mean,
That's
listen,
right.
it says a lot for Liz, says a lot for Howard. And listen, I mean, my spouse is very different than I am as well, and I think that's a good thing. But I want to start with you, Howard. I want to kind of walk through. There's obviously, like what is kind of your vision for. I'm assuming that you're not just having Connor work there, right? Eventually, there's probably some sort of plan where you're going to transition the business over to him in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Do you have like a plan? Have you worked with someone to kind of walk through all of that? Or are you guys kind of testing it out now to see how it's going? Like, what is the big picture vision like for you? I mean, I know you're not a drinker, but I'm not going to tell you, in 5 years, on the Florida coast drinking Mai Tais and I don't know. But I mean, like legitimately, like what is like for you, like what's a successful vision of this for you?
Well, we are, he's we are figuring that out as we go. One of the things, Donnie, that's helped us is that like Triangle, we have adopted the EOS model. And so I sit as the visionary, and Connor has sat in, the office seat, and now the director of operations seat. And right now we have a fractional integrator who is keeping that seat warm for Connor. So I suspect it's sometime here, probably in the not too distant future, that he'll become the integrator of the company. As far as selling it outright to him, we haven't gotten that far down the pike. I know that he wants the company, and I don't need to go after the biggest multiple. I find it to be a blessing that the legacy of Anti-Pesto will continue on, and it'll be in good hands with my son. What that looks like, whether we arrive at a purchase price or we, work out some sort of deal where he just pays his mother and I until, God calls us both home. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of the direction we're going. We've set it up. Everything's in, that we own is in a trust, and so obviously it flows down. But yeah, I envision that probably in the next couple of years he'll be the integrator and I'll be the visionary, and we'll go that route for a few years, and then I'll step back and let him do as he wishes. So
Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Connor? What's your like, a successful transition? We heard from Howard. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, no, I echo a lot of what my dad said. Right now, we're kind of doing it together, which is awesome. Getting to work with both my parents every day and see and gain all of the knowledge and the stories and the contacts that they've built over the past, 35, 37 years, and kind of have a front row seat and just be a sponge to that. My goal is to, continue Anti-Pesto on the path that we've decided to go down, providing, the highest level of service to the Tampa Bay area and providing opportunities for our people. So the successful transition in my mind is continuing that and taking it to the next step where we continue to grow, continue offering opportunities to our people to allow them to flourish. That'd be, the peak for me.
That's awesome. So what's it been like working together? I mean, I'm listening to Howard talk about how he's the integrator and that he's the guy who makes it all happen. But every time I call him, he's in his, RV, like someplace else in the country. And I'm trying to, I don't know what's that like.
Well, I'm definitely not the integrator, that's for sure. The visionary,
Or
yes.
the visionary. I'm sorry.
Visionary.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
Yes.
yeah,
sorry.
definitely. No, just there because there's definitely a difference, and
There
I'm
is.
not.
We do ELS at our
Yeah,
place.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
miss.
well, son, I'll let you answer that question. What is that like when your mom and dad are gone all
And
the time?
your bonus depends on how you answer that question.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes.
I was just about to say, tread carefully, Connor.
No, I mean, so, and this is kind of honestly the key to what we've kind of figured out with this is clear communication and clear boundaries and understanding that, my mom and dad are my mom and dad first, and then business partner slash boss second. And understanding that and having, that clearly defined has really been a game changer for us and understanding that. We are very different in a lot of ways, but at our core, we have the same values, and that's what matters the most. Um, my dad is the visionary. He's big ideas. He loves marketing and sales. I'm more about getting it done, and I do have a creative side, but he definitely has the big ideas. So we work really well together in that aspect. And then obviously my mom is kind of the glue in the finance world of making sure that these ideas we come up with and figure out how to do that we can
And we
actually
can pay for them.
Yes.
These harebrained ideas.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it's also recognizing what each other's strengths and weaknesses are in this, and being open and honest with them as well, and recognizing that we definitely work way better together as a team than we do individually.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a quick question. Now, I know Howard, and Connor, I know you, just because of our affiliation in another peer group and those types of things. But I think for our listeners, it would be very helpful. I would like for you, Connor, to talk through a little bit about some of the changes that you've made in the business. I mean, you're right. I mean, listen, Howard has some good ideas, and listen, you look at the top guys who knock home runs. They strike out more than they hit, but when they hit, it's on, right? And so, can you just talk us through a little bit
That was
about?
kind of a backhanded
It's not a
I don't know,
backhanded at
Howard.
all.
He just
What?
insulted you. Most of what you
No.
do fails,
Yeah.
but
Hey, well,
occasionally you
for
hit
our
one.
But you
listeners,
keep swinging.
this is Dan trying to put in a little drama. We're not doing.
Oh,
We're
stop.
not doing any. What do they call that? TV reality. We're not doing any of that. So my point here is for Connor. What are some changes that you've brought to the business that may be a little different than the way your dad did things? And I'm just curious, like as far as technology and as far as how the business operates and runs. I mean, what have been some things that your dad's kind of turned over to you that you've made some changes on, and how's that been going?
Yeah, so definitely on the technology front, when I got brought into, our office side and had a lot of focus on, customer care and inside sales, it kind of allowed me the opportunity to look at our business as a whole and see where technology wise that we could, take a step up. So, whether it be we recently went through a software transition, and overseeing that was a really valuable lesson for me to kind of see the whole business in its entirety and oversee that. In addition to recently deciding to make a change on our phone system. Also internal processes with how the customer flows between departments and what that communication looks like from our sales team to our service team, and back and forth and that kind of stuff. So I think when I got brought into the office, that was the place that I felt like I had the opportunity to make the biggest changes, because it touches really every part of your business.
Right.
So that's been really cool to me. We use Slack now for all of our inter-office communication. And that's been super, super beneficial for our technicians to be able to communicate with our office and our sales team as well.
Yeah. What about you, Howard? What's been kind of your perspective on watching some of the changes? I mean, have you been open arms embracing it, or has it been kind of a challenge?
You bite your tongue.
Yeah.
It's funny, guys, as time has gone on, you know, your trust grows. And it's not that I don't trust my son, it's just, I'm the old guy with, the 40 plus years experience. And, he's green, but as each day goes on, you can see that the knowledge that he has, especially on the technology side of things. I mean, I've always considered myself as kind of being on the cutting edge of what the industry had technologically. However, when you start, see what somebody that's in that, 20 to 35-year range being able to come into company and the knowledge that they have, because they basically had an iPad in their crib when they were growing up. It's amazing how much faster that he can assimilate to new technologies, like a new software system or a new phone system, and how that he is able to. We have basically most of the people I think everybody in our office, am I right, except for two, Connor, has got to be under 35, and they're just so much faster in picking up with new technology, and it makes us more efficient. So, technology, and then watching him just grow and create his own relationships out in the industry as well. He is now in his own peer group with David Billingsley, of course, and working with David. And he just went through.
How's that going? Only positive comments.
Oh, it's great.
Make that check out to Howard Bright. Okay.
Yeah. No, we just had our first meeting November, December, and it was great. Great group. I'm excited about it.
That's good. That's good. So you mentioned Howard, and it's the same thing with me because my son's in the business as well. But if you've been around long enough, you're no smarter than anybody. You've just experienced a lot of stuff.
Exactly.
And what's funny about being in pest control is you can go to an association meeting and sit around a table, and the guy to the left of you tells some outlandish story, and there's always somebody at the table who's got a story who's even better than that one.
Yep.
And all the stuff that happens, and it's kind of interesting. But so
I was going to say real quick, and I want to spend the last part of this podcast really on this idea, which is, a lot of our listeners, there's a lot at stake, right? I mean, we're kind of making light and we talk about business a lot, but ultimately, what we're talking about is a major asset, and we're talking about a really big part of everyone's lives here. And so, I think a lot of our listeners, one of the biggest challenges that they have is like, how do you take someone who's been at the peripheral? I mean, I'm sure you worked in the business, Connor, when you were younger. I know you talked about, you had some experience in it. But how do you prepare? And I really want to hear from both of you guys. I mean, from you, Howard, I want to hear kind of what your thought process is. But and for you, Connor, I want to hear like what your game plan is. Is like, there are realities in running a business, and I said this on our previous episode, which is, people find out that I own it, and they're like, man, that's so awesome. It's cool. You get to do this, and you get to do that, and you don't have to come in on this, and blah blah blah. And everyone, like, if you're listening to this and you own a business, I know you're laughing because you've probably heard something the same. And the reality of it is that most people have no idea what it takes to build, grow, operate a business over the long
and
term.
it also something that a lot of people don't realize is that, and Tani, you mentioned it, it's a big asset, right? So you could just sell the thing outright, take a whole bunch of money, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be the bank in the way you're structuring it, whether you're going to be the bank or whether you're going to be, get taking care of the rest of your life. But your trust is totally in your son's hands. And so that's risk that both of you have to manage because, that the money is on the table. It's not in the pocket, right? So
I guess the point I'm getting to here is that, obviously most people know I'm triangle only now. That's all I do. But I have a lot of experience in going into businesses and seeing how they operate. And I've seen many businesses where they transitioned into a new generation, and the next generation just took the business to a whole nother level. Like, it was an amazing transition. And I've seen other businesses
And the other
where,
way, yeah.
yeah, I've seen other businesses where the next generation was not prepared, and they were almost like just strapped down by fear, right? Fear that they're gonna, they're not gonna be able to take care of their parents, or they don't have the knowledge to really make some hard decisions that they need to. And so I guess what I'm getting at here, and we're going to start with you, Howard, is, what is your approach to preparing the next generation and ensuring that they are really ready to take this on? And then for you, Connor, I mean, it's going to be kind of the same thing. Like, what are you doing to get prepared? Because it is a big responsibility. And I mean, again, it all sounds and looks sexy on the outside, but the realities of it is that it's a lot of work and it takes a lot of skill. And I'm not, saying we all deserve a medal or a pat on the back. I'm just being real, because it is. I mean, it's not as glamorous and sexy as some like to make it out to be. So let's start with you, Howard. Big picture.
Well, for me, I have been blessed to be in peer groups for, it's got to be 35 years. And within these peer groups, the relationships that were formed, I got the front row seat to watching succession take place. I watched Al and Eric Hoffer and watched that process, and I have a close relationship with both Al and Eric. But I remember when Eric was younger than Connor, and he was starting to come to peer groups, and he didn't know anything, and now Eric has become a respected operator within the industry and runs a great business. I've had the same benefit with Neil Parker, and watched him and the succession that has gone on with Court and Daphne Partner, and how that's been successful and continues on. And then the Phillips family, who owned Blue Chip in the St. Louis area. For me, it's not been about books; it's been about relationships. So, in addition to the Parkers and the Hoffers, just being able to find somebody and who's done it already or going through it, you may be a few years before, and that's the way that I learn more through mentorship. So I don't know. The other piece of advice that I would say is that you got to make sure that your kid wants the business. Don't force him into something that he doesn't want to do. Okay, and then he may want it, but then can he do it? Is it possible? So this period of time that Connor and I have been going through is kind of like a test run for him to see if he's going to be able to handle taking the company over. So that's been my method so far, and he's done outstanding, better than I could have expected. I got to tell you, if you're going to have a son or daughter transition into the business, you need to be careful about transitioning them in. They need to understand that they're going to be scrutinized by all the existing employees, that they have got to do better than your best employee, because they're being watched, they're being judged. And Connor's done really well at not writing checks on the Bright name with the employees. So,
all right, Connor. I was going to say, let's hear from you. What are some things that you're doing to try to prepare, for this responsibility, or really this transition that may or may not happen? It sounds like we're still trying to figure that out. But what are some things that you're doing to try to get prepared and really gain the skills to be able to really be able to operate as, I'm assuming eventually you're going to be the visionary, maybe the integrator, maybe a little bit of the both. Maybe talk through that a little bit.
Yeah, no, for me, I'm going to echo what my dad said. It's really about the relationships. I've been blessed from a young age that I've gotten to sit in a lot of rooms with a lot of really smart people like you two men, and that you all have been willing for a punk kid to ask a lot of questions and give really honest and genuine answers. So having conversations with next generations and understanding what the process looked like for them has been super beneficial to me.
Mm.
You know, you walk into this and Donnie, you put it perfectly, and there's a lot of pressure. It's like you're going to be responsible for 30, 40, 50, hundreds of people's families and their lives and their livelihood, and continuing on with your parents or whoever it was that started the business, continuing on that legacy. And that is a lot of pressure to deal with. And having people that I can call on and bounce ideas off of and relate to is so beneficial. And I think teaches me more than any book could ever. In addition to that, with our people, I am transparent with them to a fault, I would say. I from day one, I've been clear on my intentions with them, that this isn't just a job to me. This is what I want to do, and that I want to be here, and I want to continue what my parents have started and bring it to the next level. And I think being open and honest with them provides clarity and real peace to all of our people, that they know that what we are building here is going to continue on. I don't hide behind it. I don't shy away from it. I'm upfront with them that this is what I want to do. Because like you said, I mean, if you don't want to do it, then it's going to fail.
Right.
And having to not only live up to the expectation, but exceed the expectation, if that want's not there, it'll never work. So I constantly am exposing myself to new people in the industry to try to learn as many resources as possible, industry events, that kind of stuff, to connect with people and just gain new ideas and insights.
Yeah. No, this has been great. Dan, any parting thoughts here before we finish out? I think this is probably one of the most, it's probably one of the biggest things that both of you will do in your career, right? I would say Howard and Connor both. This is, and there's a lot of folks who are in this scenario. And so I appreciate you guys talking through this. And just a quick plug, I am a huge fan of Traction, and I love that you guys are doing it. I think it's going to be a big help as you go through this, right? Because you've got the infrastructure and it's clear, right? It's not like your style, while your styles may be different, the core is going to be the same. And I think that's probably the continuity that you would need. Dan, any parting thoughts before we finish out here?
No, I think it's really interesting that, the business that I'm in, I get to meet people like Howard and Connor and all of our clients. And this is something that comes up over and over again, well, we could exit and sell it to a third party, but geez, I have a kid who's really interested, or I have a kid that I want to see if they're interested,
right.
And that's kind of where you're at. And this was terrific, and really appreciate you guys coming on.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you guys having. And hey, look, I'll see you guys, in less than a month. They're going to be coming into our peer group. So Howard and Connor get to come to hang out with Dan and I, which will be a lot of fun. But no, Howard, very much look forward to having you guys come out. Really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I think a lot of our listeners are going to get a lot from what you guys are doing. And we may have you on a bit later. I mean, maybe in 3 years, maybe Howard will just live in his, it's not an RV.
In his RV.
Down by the river.
Fifth wheel.
We'll hear about the adventures of Howard, and then we'll, get to hear what Connor's really doing to make sure that he funds that lifestyle. And so with that, just a reminder, all the resources and topics that we talked about today are going to be available on the podcast website, PMPindustryinsider.com. Just take a look under show notes. We'll put up Howard and Connor's website as well, Anti-Pesto. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode or you enjoy the content in general, we always appreciate any ratings and reviews that you can give us, unless they're negative. And if they are, then we ask that you pass that on to Dan. And with that, we're going to see you all next time. Take care now.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.